Ooh, hello everybody out there in Facebook land, TikTok world, YouTube, everywhere there might be a clip, including Instagram and things of that nature. Welcome to the broadcast. I am Henderson. Monty Anderson, your host here at 412 Productions. Don't even know my own name anymore. But welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you for stopping in, checking us out, and welcome, everybody. Hopefully, we have a good show for you today. Don't know who's going to pop in, pop on, any of that good stuff. But we always are here to entertain. Are you not entertained? I'm just kidding. No, we're here to have fun. Entertainment is just part of it. But we will see. No. So, you've got everything going in full swing. You got the rainy season going on. You got the tornado season going on still. All that good stuff around different parts of the world, not just here in Arkansas, where I am located. I was not raised and born here, so don't get all in a tizzy about it. But welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you for stopping in, dropping in, popping in, all that good stuff, even if it's only for just a moment. That still boosts the program, and that's what we like. That's what we like, and that's what we want, is for the program to be boosted a little bit. So like, share, follow, and ask questions down here. Like the title says, it says, why not watch the show? I get people that come on, or not come on, but ask me questions when they see the title to one of my broadcasts, thinking that it's pertaining to my life. Now, sometimes it is, but then there's topics that need to be addressed sometimes. And so that becomes the highlight, the title to my show. Just like the one I did a couple days ago. That was like, see, I can't remember the title of my own show. What it was on the 10th, which was about in a funk, you know. And so I had people come and ask me, well, what are you in a funk about? Well, why don't you watch the show and find out? If you want to know, instead of just asking vague questions, you know? And it's just like, if you're that interested, go ahead and watch the broadcast. It's recorded. All you got to do is watch the first 20 minutes of the broadcast and you'll understand what's going on. But no. And some people, they're like, well, it must be pertaining to your life and I must know what's going on with every aspect of your life. But I'm not going to watch the show. I'm just going to ask you what's going on with it because of your title. And that's what makes no sense to me, is that people are so enthralled with your life, but yet they don't want to watch the broadcast that explains what's going on. Just like some of the topics that I talk about, which I need to put up here on Facebook and YouTube right there. It is one of those things that you can bring up certain topics on here and you will get restricted for it. Because if you say certain things, certain keywords, you're going to get a restriction. You get limited on who gets to see what. And maybe that's the person that it needs to reach. And good morning, Mr. Roy Joe Twilight Bradley Jr. I'm glad you finally made it to the show. We're 5 minutes in and you're just now waking up. I know that's a damn lie because we've been talking on Messenger. And which was sucking today. So I said, screw that. And I'm going over to text message. So, but you get those people that are so nosy about your life that they want to know everything that's going on in your life, and they stalk your socials, and they see your titles to your videos and things like that. But yet they don't go and watch your show, you know. And then you've got the other people that will stalk your show and never say anything about it. but let everybody else know about it. Thank you, Mr. Roy Joe Twilight Bradley Jr. It is a great shirt. It's a little cold in here too, but anyway, enough about those. But thank you for the likes, the shares, the hearts. That's a new one. I hadn't seen that one before. We're here in Arkansas, Fort Smith area. CC. But thank you for asking. And was that a little flame? I don't know. It's so far away. My eyes aren't that great anymore. But no, the the fact of the matter that people will come on your show and watch it, but they won't interact, and then they go spread all this stuff about you to other people. You know, oh, he said this, oh, he said that, oh, she, he, they, whatever. It just amazes me the mindset of people sometimes. And it's like I was saying, those that don't watch the show but yet read your title and think it's pertaining to your life. Now, again, most of my show titles do pertain to my life, and that is really big today, isn't it? I got stung by a yellow jacket yesterday while tearing down a deck, and it's a little puffy and swollen today. I mean, it was a little puffy and swollen last night too when it happened, but I just thought it was a piece of wood digging in my arm as I lifted up the railing from this deck that I'm tearing down. And next thing I know, I see a yellow jacket walking away, and I see its nest, and I was like, "Well, damn! I just put my arm right on the yellow jacket." I mean, that could have been my title. My yellow jacket. That would have been a more captivating title for everybody out there. But no, seriously, I mean, it just amazes me that people want to know so much about your stuff, and then they come to you. Well, why was it? Why are you in a funk? You know, it's just like, well, maybe I wasn't in a funk, but I was just asking general questions of how do you, if you do get into a funk, get out of that funk? What do you do for yourself if you get into a funk to get out of it? You know? And me, I was like, I go chop firewood. I go destroy something. I go build something. I go this, that, or the other. And, if I am in a funk, you know, um, and I can go from zero to funky real quick, you know, uh, just like I can go from zero to a million on anger, you know, just like that. Drop the flip of the switch, drop of the hat. Yes, Mr. Kirk Holt. I am talking. That was last episode, last live, which was on the 10th, and he's asking, "What are you talking about, funk?" LOL. And so that means you've been listening, and I appreciate you, brother. Welcome to the show as well, and Cece, welcome you to the show as well. But yeah, so many people get in their minds that everything that you talk about is pertaining to you. You know, if you put an angry text out there, or if you put you know in love text, or if you put whatever. Now, it doesn't always have to pertain to what's going on in your life for it to be talked about. And on that side note, it's like there are so many different topics that need to be addressed and talked about that you know my platform is for comic books, artwork, superhero movies, horror movies, sci-fi movies, Friends, um, and the like. But it also talks about real life situations as well. You know, um, because in a lot of ways we've all been hurt by something out there. You know, we could go down the gambit of what we've been hurt by through life. You know, Einstein, your truck guy. Have some comics? I always have comics. I've got 27 boxes of comics here at my house. And I just picked up three more. Not boxes, but comics. One that I specifically needed, and then two that I really didn't, but I got them anyway. The Steampunk Festival was pretty awesome. A lot of cool stuff happening out there. Um, I will start with the one that I needed, which was Uncanny X Men number 416. bagged and boarded. Got it for $4. Right there. Got the Juggernaut on the cover. Doing the raised hand fist. Gathering power. And it's one I needed. That fills out a small section in my section there of my comic books. This is my biggest run of stuff right now. It's Uncanny X-Men. Out of any comic that I have, Uncanny X-Men is my jam. Uncanny X-Men is my thing. It's the first comic book I ever picked up and read, and it is the love of my life, next to my girlfriend. Okay, and see, I don't even put myself in that category. I mean, I do love myself, but not like I'm so egotistical that I only love me. Those type things. And then the next cover is the wedding issue. It was a little pricey because, unfortunately, it's one of those iconic collectible key issues where Scott and Jean get married. Andy Kubert cover, very awesome. I paid $8 for it. Actually, knocked some prices off, but because I know the guy that was selling these at the Steampunk Festival. And I didn't need that one, but I will need it eventually because I am going to be getting back. Are there copycats of comics? Of course there are. Of course there are. Well, let's take Rob Liefeld, for example, who worked for Marvel all those years. And then whenever he moved over to Image Comics with everybody else who created Image Comics, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Valentino, Eric Larson, Rob Liefeld, the list goes on and on of the 5 to 6 members that moved from Marvel and DC. How to tell? It's very hard to tell sometimes because there are facsimile covers or facsimile books of the original comic book, and it usually says second printing or third printing, thereof. So if you go inside the cover where it gives all the information, the tiny little information down in there, this is volume whatever, volume one, issue whatever. It'll usually say second print, third print, fourth print, of that same book. Now, generally, whenever it gets into those second, third, fourth prints, it has a different cover. Unlike Uncanny X-Men number 266, I think that's the right one. I could be wrong. It's the first full appearance of Gambit in the comic book. The cameo appearance that happened in the annual is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about that specific issue. There are facsimile covers of that, but people are still passing them off as the original. So you have to get and look at the little small print. And I'm trying to find an open comic book right now, which I do not have one sitting right here next to me that is open, meaning out of a bag. I really don't want to open those. Let me. Ah, here we go. I've got stuff everywhere. Let's take this Mad Magazine, for example. This is my ElfQuest covers from, like it says, 1978 to 2022. It's a massive, heavy book about like War and Peace right here. It's an awesome book. I'm a huge ElfQuest fan as well. Wendy and Richard Penny, very awesome. Okay, so back to you right here. Okay, so I'm not gonna bend this back too much, but right here in a comic book, you've got this fine text right here at the very bottom, right here. This gives you all the information. Let me bring this over into the light. This says Mad Magazine, September 1975, Volume 1, number 177, published monthly except February, May, August, and November. Which means they either don't print in those months or they do multiple prints in those months because of holidays and things like that. Now, if this was a second or third print, it would tell me right there in that little section. So, any of your copycats like that come from other countries or just somebody, Joe Schmo, printing it out of his basement, found a Zen, the Intergalactic Ninja. That was a cool read. That was fun. He's actually, I think, making a comeback, honestly. Um, but that Zen Intergalactic Ninja was awesome, and I love that. I love that comic book. I used to have the first ones, and I ended up selling all those off for the down payment of a house I no longer live in to a woman I'm no longer married to. So that's a pain. That's a pain in my heart. But yes, that was an awesome fun read. I think I think I've picked up several that I found in an antique store. Honestly, for next to nothing, they were basically like $1 a piece. So had to get them. Couldn't pass them up. Couldn't resist. You know, and uh, and it's just one of those things that if you like the story, if you like the artwork in it, and then get what you like, when it comes to comic books. Even if it's a facsimile cover, because unfortunately, some of those facsimile covers sell higher than the actual book itself because it was a bootleg copy. And they're not hard to find, but they are out there, and the industry knows it, and they just can't stop it. It's one of those things that they try to lock it down as much as possible, but it doesn't always work. So if you do happen to find, yeah, the tops ones were fun as well because they had like Vlad the Impaler. Um, oh, it was what are the other ones? The wing guy. I can't remember what his name is, but he's flying down. His arms spread behind him with these wings under his arms and all that good stuff. Yeah, I remember those too. Those were pretty awesome. And I had those too. You know, and I probably still have some in all this stuff that I've got. Jurassic Park, yeah, yeah. Jurassic Park was some fun ones, and Tops made some good ones for kids because there was nothing really overly aggressive or those type things. But thank you for all the emojis coming through. I love it. It's awesome. That helps boost the show. And like I said, liking, sharing, and following helps too because I follow back. I go through periodically and dump people that aren't following me, so I make a lot of room. So, uh, because you're hoping people will follow you so that you can get to that 10,000 mark. But I'm not there yet. I'm telling you. Now, my last book is a Hulk variant, uh, an ex Gwen variant. She's Gwen Stacy as Rogue, basically, right here. And I just thought it was a cool cover. I really didn't need it, but I thought it was cool. And so I went ahead and picked it up. It's one that I was kind of hoping would have been bagged and boarded by them, but it was not. But it is in a nicer poly bag. I like the poly bag that they've got it in. It's a really thick poly bag. I haven't seen those before, and I get the poly bags out there. Ghost Rider. I've got several Ghost Rider here. Uh, Let me tell you my backstory. Since we're going down this road, I like it. I love the pop up questions like this. It's awesome. So I got into comics back in the '80s. Most people probably on my broadcast right now probably weren't alive. Okay, Dark Horse Aliens, yeah, plus Predator, plus tons of other great titles that Dark Horse has produced over the years. And that is where um, that is where ElfQuest moved over to for a short bit. So Darker Image, I've got that. Um, First comic, or this is like my second or third comic book convention in the '90s, right here, DEF CON 3. But back to the backstory. I started reading comics back in the '80s, and my very first one was my Uncanny X Men, and that was a friend of mine had a subscription to these, and so he actually got me to read them. He was like, "Hey, here, read one of these," and that was the very first one. I looked at the ones he had, and I picked up this one because it had the most dynamic cover, to me anyway at the time, and uh, and I fell in love with comics at that point, especially Uncanny X Men, and From there, Channy Gang. That one I haven't heard of. I haven't heard of Channy Gang. Let me grab this real fast. Let me just do it right here, cause right here. All right. So this is my first comic book ever read. Uncanny X-Men number 183, right here. Yes, I had this one encapsulated. Not me personally. I bought it this way. I found it at a really good price. And this was the first comic book I ever read. I loved the cover of it with Colossus banging on Juggernaut right there, with Wolverine and Nightcrawler watching in the background right there. Get a little closer so you can see that. So that one made me Conan the Savage, Conan the Barbarian too. Can't forget that. Red Sonja, which has been a big hit with all the guys here lately, especially in Dynamite Entertainment's world. And then DC Comics. I'm not a huge DC Comics fan, unfortunately. I do like Batman over there and a couple of other characters. But as far as a continuity all the way around, I'm not a huge DC Comics fan. Never have been. Like I said, Batman was really about it. I didn't like Superman. Wonder Woman was okay. Uh, the early works of Wonder Woman were a lot better, to be honest. Especially around the 200 something issue or something like that. Might have been earlier than that. It probably was earlier than that. But there was this whole bondage series that they did, and those covers are going crazy right now. The Savage Sword of Conan, yeah. And you got to look at when the comic books for Conan were this size instead of this size. Oops, there goes my boom mic. So, you know, they used to be, well, this is almost the same size. But anyway, they used to be bigger. The Conan books were a lot bigger, you know, as far as that goes, than a regular comic book. And then it was published under different titles other than just Marvel. So, but so that comic book got me to read. I mean, literally read, because I had to go look up what words meant at the time. I was a semi smart cookie. I didn't like school, but and so I got into that, and it started making me read and understand what actual words meant as far as how they were portrayed in the sentence. So I had to go look up stuff, and that's what made me love comics, is because I had to learn. And so after that, it was late '90s, and I was already married, had a kid, and I started getting into comic books semi heavy. I was drawing back then as well, probably long before then, but I was drawing just small stuff here and there, and started collecting comics, and went to my first Comic Con in, I think it was '94. Dallas Fantasy Fair was my first comic book convention. Went with a group of friends, and we get there, and I meet so many different people. I mean, so many different people, and uh, even met James O'Barr by happenstance. I didn't realize I needed a ticket for that line, because everybody else didn't have a ticket, but he did. And I've got my graphic novel of the Crow, and I see him, and I don't see anybody around him, and I'm like, well, this is James O'Barr, the Crow guy. And so I drop my book on the table. He grabs it up, he autographs it. We chit chat for a minute. I go about my way, and then this dude walks up to me and says, "Hey, can I see your ticket?" And I'm like, "My ticket?" He's like, "Hey, you're supposed to have a ticket to be in line." And he points to where the line is, and I turn around, and I see all these angry faces looking at me, because there's this huge long line going down this aisle. And I was like, I didn't know, this is my first comic book convention, and they couldn't do anything about it, but it just made people upset, because hey, I jumped the line. I'm walking down the aisle, and here he is, and I'm like, hey, here's my book, sign it, please. But I met so many people then: Jim Lee, Jim Valentino, George Perez. Uh, I mean, the list goes on and on. And then later on in '96, I meet Stan Lee. You know, got a few things autographed by him, and I still have one of them, which is a box that I used to take to the conventions all the time with myself. Not with myself, but I took it to the comic book conventions. I mean, it's got a ton of people on it. Several that are dead now that will never be able to sign again. Michael Turner, Stephen Hughes, Lady Death creator, or partial creator. He drew her, as she was back in the 90s. Um, uh, George Perez is on there. Stan Lee's on there. A lot of creative talent that is no longer with us today. And so I started collecting comics, and Uncanny X-Men was my jam. I collected that like nobody's business. Well, in 2009, I was able to purchase Uncanny X-Men #1. Not a great copy. It probably would have won about a 4.5 or a 5.0 or something like that if it was graded. But that was the most I spent on a comic book, $800. And so I was probably about 70 issues away from having the entire run from where it ended in 2002. And uh, before they started doing the whole second volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, I think they're up to volume 6 or 7 right now, which is ridiculous to me. But it's not my book. I just love the 1963 to 2002 version, and even portions of that version I didn't like so much because of the writing talent, the artist, and things like that. But it felt rushed in certain areas. The artwork seemed crappy, if you would. But all in all, that was my series. That was my jam. And fast forward to 2010, I sell off almost everything that I owned for a marriage that I'm no longer in and a house I don't live in anymore. So hindsight 2020, I would have kept my comics and figured out a different way to put a down payment for a house. So that's where the long story short comes into that. But I've had so many different comic books, and now some friends of mine bestowed some comics upon me that they found. They have a roll-off dumpster business, as well as construction, and they uh, put their roll-off dumpster at a house as requested. And then it's there for the allotted amount of time. Before they haul it off, they start going through to see if there's anything salvageable, and they start finding these boxes, about yay wide, about yay wide, and about yay deep. Okay, right there, yay wide, 2 comic books wide, and then about yay deep. Okay, you see where this is going? Well, they start opening up these boxes, and boom, there's comic books in Ziploc bags, gallon-sized Ziploc bags, side by side, you know, in there just right so that they wouldn't get bent, folded, crimped, all that good stuff. And they find, roughly 3,000 comic books in this dumpster, and they call me. They contact me via messenger actually, and then we start chit chatting on the phone, and he starts sending me pictures of all the stuff in there, and they're like, would you be interested in these? And I'm like, of course I would. I'm a comic book guy. And so, I end up paying them X amount of money for them. And then from there, the girlfriend and I actually go get them. And we start going through them. And as we're going through them, we start finding some halfway decent comics. This being one of them. And, there's so many others in here that I'll show you as well. And let me just do this. All the ones that we found are basically right here. Move the cowl out of the way. Where did you go, Vampirella? Vampirella. This one did not come out of that set. Okay, so what we found, and this is just a portion of what we found as we were going through these comic books. So we find a Marvel premiere featuring the Power of Warlock #1 right here, and I had Mr. And now I can't even think, Starlin, Jim Starlin, signed this because he was the creator of Adam Warlock. So his autograph is right here, which I have pictures of. That's my authentication, is him signing these books. And of course, Marvel premiere featuring the Power of Warlock #2. He autographed this one as well up here, because the person that owned these did a coding system on these books for some reason. So he did write on some of the books, not all of the books, but some of the books that he had. And so he actually, Jim Starlin wrote over the coding mark on that book. So it makes it harder to see, and now it's got an authentic autograph on it. Now this one, which turned this into about a $600 book with his autograph on it, right down here, first appearance of Thanos. It was in there. This is a key issue. Even though it's got that little tick mark on it right there, that you can see the writing on right there, that little writing right there, that doesn't mean squat to CGC. If I were to go get this graded, they were looking at this autograph, the condition of the whole book, and they're not worried about this tiny writing up here. That has no effect. Just like on a $10,000 book that was in the trash. Right here, Hulk 181. This one has almost sharp corners. It's still got semi-white pages on the inside. This is not a facsimile. This is not a reprint. This is the actual real deal Holyfield Hulk 181, first full appearance of Wolverine in a comic book. And you see his little tick mark right here. Right there. When I get this graded, and I will get this one graded, I'm going to get this one pressed and graded. It is not going to affect the value on this whatsoever. What affects the value is if it had sharp bends in it, if it was folded in half, if it was missing part of the cover, those type things. This could potentially be, an $8,000 to $10,000 comic book once I get it graded. And then you got this one, which could be about a $4,000 comic book if I get it graded. Hulk 182, the third appearance of Wolverine in the comic book. Right there. And again, his little tick mark right there on the Hulk, on the H, right there, will not affect this because, again, a key issue. So 2 key issues. There was actually about 40 key issues that I found in the stuff that they found in the trash. Okay. And, 3,000 comic books, 40 key issues, and, if I were to get everything graded that I had in what they found, it would probably be close to $200,000 worth of comic books, just because of the age of everything. Everything was Bronze Age for the most part. There was a few silver, but mainly Bronze Age is where it was at. Excuse me. And, you know, even some comic books today are up there in value. Take Mark Spear's Monsters right now. For some reason, that is taking off like wildfire. And it's got great artwork, great covers. But, I mean, you have to buy it directly off the rack or order it direct. Otherwise, you're not getting a copy of it. And when issue number 1 is already up to like $300 already, it's amazing, that something would take off that fast. And but that's kind of what happened with Spawn back in the day. Everybody bought up Spawn number 1 when it came out. And as soon as they were gone from the market, it was already reaching up to $300. And then people started flooding the market with these comic books. And then here goes the price, way down. So it went from $300 to $30. And some people still sell them for $70 at their store. But you have the 2 different styles. You've got the direct and the newsstand editions. So one is more expensive than the other. So it's just like this DEFCON 3 book from 1996. Their little pamphlet. It's got, I think we said it's got 13 autographs inside of it. From everybody that I met. How much is this thing worth today? 1996 with the talents of, Kevin J. Anderson, Rebecca Moster, David Wohl, Michael Turner, no longer with us, Kathy Christian, who played Evangeline in Image Comics. Len Wein isn't in here, but I had him sign quite a few things. Shannon Wheeler, Dan Fraga, Morant Michaels, Susie Flaxen Owens, Nikki Fritz, aka Razor from the comic book line. J.J. North, aka Tommy Gunn from the comic line. Teresa Lynn, Steve Irwin, Rod Davis, Jordy Ensign, Michael Vance, R.A. Jones. I mean, those are the ones that are in here. And, it's like, how much would this book be worth with just their autographs in it? There's no artwork in it. I've got that on the back wall behind me right there. That's some of the people I met at these shows. Steve Irwin's on there. Jordy Ensign's in there. Those type things. And it's just like, well, how much would that be worth plus their artwork? Because I got these free, the autographs for free. I didn't have to spend a dime on any of these things back there. Now there are certain ones back here that are on that side of me, right there, that I did spend money on. That's a James O'Barr original right there, called Tiny Dancer. It's of a ballerina in the spotlight, basically. And he actually wrote a handwritten letter to me off of eBay. You know, he says, "Thank you, Monty, for purchasing this good girl art, which is basically becoming a lost art because of all the bad girl art that was out there. Lady Death, anything from Image Comics, because their boobs were hanging out and they just had a little bit of string bikini covering their parts, you know. And that was a lot of comic books back in the day. That was the bad girl era, and was then the '90s. I mean, Jim Ballant was one of the best at drawing the bad girl, and then J. Scott Campbell showed up, and then you got Al Garza. You got, I mean, the list goes on and on of people that started drawing the bad girls. Eric Basada, but Ebass, out there for Zenscope Entertainment. But uh, his title is Go Ass, and it's just like you have so much talent out there that now when you go to a comic book convention, you get an autograph from somebody, Jim Starlin, for example. I had 27 books that I wanted to get autographed because I was hoping that his autograph would be like $5, $10 or something like that. No, it was $20, $20 a shot. So go do that math. 20 times or 20 times 27. You do that math. And it was just like, yeah, no, I'm getting 5 signed. Because I'm making money too, because I was set up as an artist there as well in San Antonio when I met him. And I was hoping he would come over and check out the stuff, but he never did. So, but that's, the life of an artiste or, creator. They don't go check other people's stuff out unless it's technically right next to them or whatever. Unless they just happen to walk the hall for whatever reason. But he had panels to be at and things like that. Very professional guy. And, it's just one of those things that back in the day in the '90s, you weren't paying for squat. Now, if you had to buy a ticket to get into a line, it was probably like $5 to $10 or something like that. But it was never what it is now. Um, you got to buy these tickets for these celebrities and some artists, and you're paying anywhere between 75 to $200 just to get an autograph. Now, again, I cannot confirm about um, Mark Hamill's prices. I've just seen what people have posted, and it could have been a totally made up thing. But his prices were starting at like $400 to $800, for his stuff, like an autograph and a picture, you know, uh, which seems a little ridiculous to me, but a lot of people will do that. It's just like William Shatner. People were paying $150 plus for his autograph, and you couldn't even talk to him. You just plop your stuff down and go. Now Michael Rooker sat there and chit chatted with him because he loved my artwork that I did up, which was Yondo in the middle, and then his other characters going around, and we had a little blast right there. Unfortunately, we couldn't take pictures of him signing this stuff, but I've got the ticket, the e-ticket that got me in there, and to get him to autograph it. So it's just one of those things that sometimes you cannot authenticate a signature just because um, you can't get the proof. And he didn't, and it wasn't like he had a CSA or a JSA little sticker to put on things either. So, uh, so he was just autographing, and we chit chatted back and forth, and then I went on my way. You know, he was one of the cooler ones, and then so were some of the other people that were sitting next to him. Gina Corson, and uh, I'm trying to think who was right next to him on this side, but I can't think who it was. But you had so many celebrities. The William Shatner was across the way, you know, and you had so many Star Trek, Star Wars actors in that same building, same area, um, and then just actors from all other different walks of life, like Michael Rooker, Walking Dead, Marvel, tons of other stuff, DC characters, and it's just like, but yet they're charging 70, 80, $400 for an autograph and picture and things of that nature. That back in the 90s, you didn't have to worry about that. You just walked up, dropped your books on the table, and like Lynn Wein, let's take Lynn Wein for example. He probably signed like 60 items for me, including Wolverine Run, um, 1 through like 50, you know. And he was like, "Well, if anybody else shows up, I'll stop yours and just and sign theirs." But we chit chatted for a good 20, 30 minutes, you know, and nobody showed up, which was the sad thing. One of my luxury cards is right here, and it's Mr. Lin Wein's Swamp Thing. He was one of the creators of Swamp Thing. The holographic card from the DC universe right here, and just gotta make sure it's still shield right there. Felt a little funky, but right there, you've got the Swamp Thing holographic holding up his rose. Right there. I'll get you guys too. Don't worry. Right there. And we sit there and chit chatted for like 20, 30 minutes while he's signing all this stuff, and he would even flip through some of the books. He was a cool dude. Unfortunately, he's gone and passed on. Or I would have him sign this DEFCON 3 book. You know, and it's just like, what happened? What happened to society that we don't get things for free anymore at shows and things like that? And that's what people ask me whenever I'm autographing my stuff. So how much for the autograph? And I said, you've already paid for it. When you bought my artwork, you paid for my autograph at the same time. I'm not going to charge you $10 for me to sign this. I'm not going to charge you $10 for a CSA, a certificate of authenticity. It's just like, you bought the artwork, you get my autograph for free. You know, and it's just like whenever I do a piece of original artwork commission on a painting or whatever. Once you buy that, I autograph it. I leave my stuff blank until someone buys it. And it's just like this guy that was on TikTok who apparently has ghosted me now. He gave me his phone number. We chit chatted back and forth, and now nothing's going through. Nothing's being seen on TikTok. He wanted this piece right here. I autographed it for him. I sent him a video of myself autographing this Sasquatch flipping people off, and and now he's gone. I still have him on TikTok, but he is not responding to any messages. Um, and he wanted that piece. He wanted something funky and off the wall. Well, there it is. Bigfoot flipping you off, and I turned that into a sticker. I was going to send it with it too, which I don't have out of my box yet, but it says "Stop squatching me." Stop watching me. Because everybody's looking for Bigfoot, and so where did he go? You know, and it wasn't like one of my normal pieces because that one was only $60. But now, had he wanted one of the other ones, that would have been a lot better. At $250. One of my 11 by 15s. But now this dude's gone. He wanted this piece. I pulled it out. I autographed it, and now the autograph is sitting there because I don't autograph my stuff until someone purchases it. Even if it's an older piece and someone buys it, I'm still going to put the current year that it was signed on. Um, but that's neither here nor there. You get burned like that sometimes. And that's why whenever I do a commission, I don't even start the commission until I get half of the payment up front. You know, and it's happened one too many times. Just like this guy, all gunfire, uh, balls to the wall. Want that piece of artwork? What you got that's out there? Well, this is my most out there piece. Unless you want nudity, I've got some of that. I've got my erotic book. I've got my those type books. Oh, speaking of all that stuff, as I scroll TikTok, you get to these live shows, and it's just like, how is that even legal? TikTok, blurred out. You hear the sounds. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, and it's just like, TikTok. How is that legal? Whenever you restrict or limit certain things that people can say, because if I say a certain awareness program and use it in the sentence, boom, I get restricted. People don't get to see it in certain parts of areas, because I said a specific word. But yet, you're going to let this go on, and we know exactly what's going on. Blurred out, mind you. Live show, mind you. And that's totally legal. I mean, but yet you say certain keywords and you get flagged. Make that make sense, TikTok. Make that make sense. And I'm sure people have reported the account a couple of times, probably. And it's just like, and that's not the only one. I run across two or three like that as I'm scrolling TikTok, and then these live shows pop up, different creator name. I mean, it could be the same people. I don't fucking know. It just makes no sense to me that TikTok allows that to go on, and some other things to go on. Child schmapists that have their own accounts on here. Child schmurderers have their own accounts on here. And it's just like, make that make sense, TikTok. That you're giving them a national voice and a platform to carry out their atrocities on. Make it make sense, you know. And I mean, to each their own. You know, I can't condemn, I can't judge, I can't condone, I can't, those type of things. I am me. My show is for fun. My show is for comics, horror movies, sci-fi movies, comic books, my artwork, the people I work with, those type of things. But then I run across all this shit on TikTok that should be restricted, shouldn't be here at all, but yet it is. But I say a specific topic and I get restricted, you know. And that's why I have it typed out up here on my YouTube and Facebook channel while I'm live. And I don't say it. I just point to it right there if you need help, right there, or text me, or if you have my number, or DM me, and we'll talk if you're feeling certain ways, you know, like you don't want to be above dirt anymore, um, that you feel lost, confused, forsaken, all those things. Talk to me. I've been there, especially like I said back in 2009 when my son passed away. I was there. I didn't want to be above dirt anymore. And that it took a long time, probably about 5 to 6 months before that feeling actually went away. And I had to change my mindset, you know. And so, you know, I understand the thoughts of not wanting to be above dirt anymore, you know. And it's sad that we have to phrase it that way in that direction, is because if I said the other thing, then I would get restricted right up here, where this little house is or whatever the hell that is right there. Right above my live highlights. And it's just, and I can't even say that word that I want to say so bad. Hold on. There, that's better. My knuckles out of joint, and it pops out of joint on a regular basis. It's ridiculousness. I can't say the other word, or I get restricted. Um, because TikTok is so sensitive. It's stupid. I say I almost said it right there. Ugh! It's ridiculousness. Okay, that you can't say certain words without being restricted. And so please like, share, and follow. and that way other people can come in here and listen to the stuff that's happening here. But yeah, no, and it's just like I said, this guy that wanted this piece. I'm not going to put his name out there and all that good stuff. If you saw the show, you know he was out there, and he was gung ho for it, and uh, and so that's just another a loss for me. You know, it's a loss for him too because he would have got some cool artwork, some fun, quirky artwork. But it's a loss for me money wise. And was that going to help pay a bill? No, no. I mean, it would help pay a bill, but I'm not in desperate dire straits. Um, I used to be, in those places where, oh my gosh, when's my next paycheck going to show up? When is my next piece of artwork going to sell? When is those type of things? Now I don't even worry about it. You know, coast through life, if you will. I know a lot of people can't do that because they've got a family to raise. They've got kids that are just born or in their toddler stage up to 5 to 6 years old. And that takes a lot of money. Oh, excuse me, to maintain that, especially if you've got two or three of them in that range. And then you've got your wife and your dog and your hamster, your snake, your goldfish, whatever else you have in your house that's eating all your money, because you got to provide food for everything. It's just like here on the homestead. Once I start getting the wheelbarrow worth of eggs and put my kiosk out front, that's going to help sustain the homestead. I've got chickens, I've got ducks, I've got geese, I've got turkeys, I got pigs, you know, and I did have goats. We got rid of those. Goats aren't for us, especially with what we wanted to do, and they weren't doing that. So, um, we wanted lotions, we wanted cheeses, we wanted soaps, those type things. And she just didn't produce enough milk to do that. We needed a dairy goat to do that. And we're just like, no, we're done. Now, if we do try again, it'll be with true pygmies that only get about this big. That's it, you know, and keep it at that. But we probably won't venture back there again with all that. So, but that's just me. Um, so, like right now, we're building the new geese pen right now, if you will, and it's coming along quite nicely. It's almost finished, and it'll be finished today because I've got to do some things for their little pond so they can get it up and in and all that good stuff. And then um, from there, I got to put the door on their little habitat, and then I've got to put a light up or a spot on top for the light to go into to keep them warm. Because right now they don't have their full feathers yet. They're still fuzzy. You know, they got those little fuzz feathers all over their body. They're starting to get their wing feathers in just slightly, but nothing major yet. Now, and then I'm getting ready to start our coop build of our main chicken coop, which is going to be a 12 by 12 building to house all the chickens in at the same time. And then once that happens, I'm going to dismantle the other one and get rid of it altogether. Um, it's just time. It is nasty mess is really all it is, and I hate it. We use the playhouse as the main coop area, and you have to bend over. Oh, hello guys, to get in it, and because it's a kids playhouse, so we're gonna switch that over for the ducks um, after I dismantle it all, and from there we're gonna put a hinged lid on it that we can push it up and be able to walk in and out of easily from there. So make it a little bit easier on us so that we can clean it out and all that stuff. Right now we only have two ducks, but we plan on getting some more, and so we look forward to it. We're about to make the pond bigger and move this other spot out of the way. All kinds of different things are getting ready to happen, and it's just one thing after another. But it is what it is, and you work on your own pace. It's just like all the artwork that I do. Work on my own pace. People know that I've got a lineup of commissions happening right now, so that they are this number in line. You know, I got another person that just hit me up, said, "Hey, I need to do me on a dragon, because I'm loving the dragons right now." It's like, okay, we can do that. Let's get it in the works. I've got two ahead of you right now. Plus, I've got a comic book in the works with a movie producer buddy of mine, and then I've got my own comic book in the work, and then I've got a potential book deal that I'm working on, and then I've got to still get with Patrick. Sorry, buddy, with my title for a essay for a book that he has. Uh, that's going to be, if I get selected, that will be in with a bunch of other scholars and actual doctorates, not doctors, but doctorates that have books out there in the world already, and I don't. I am published. I am a published writer, uh, and those type things, but I don't have a book out there. Like these guys are gonna have, and I will be sitting right next to their works. You know, but yeah. So I'm looking forward to everything. This is my rebuild year. Thank you, TikTok. I would not have been able to know what to do with myself without this stupid little puzzle. And see, I just said the word, so I'll probably get a restriction on that. And so I look forward to this stuff. It's what is exciting, what drives, because the voice acting that I'm doing, the acting that I've done, um, I'm hoping to do more of all of that, as well as keep everything else going. Like I said, this is my rebuild year for my 412 Productions, and that means I'm doing new prints, the way I handle prints. I'm doing new product to get people excited and interested in products again, instead of, oh well, here's just a piece of paper that you get to take home with you. This is on a saw blade, an actual saw blade. And it says the art of art on it. You can set your keys on here. You can set your change on here. You can set your wallet, your glasses, whatever you want on here, or just have it as a display piece in your home. And then if somebody breaks in, you can take them out with the saw blade. And when I say this is a real saw blade, this is a honest to goodness true saw blade right there with Art the Clown on it. It is still kind of sharp, pokey, all that good stuff. But I've got one for Billy the Puppet too, you know, and he's right here. I got him in a clock form as well. But he comes at you with, "I want to play a game," and then you put him in here and you play a game with it. Somebody breaks into your house, you're going to use this, or you're going to use what's handy. Those type things. But it says I want to play a game on it. Just like in Saw, the movie, and henceforth why he's on a saw blade. You know, because saw blade. Oh my goodness, that makes sense. That makes sense. Total sense. I'll tell you out there. But anyway, but hopefully you guys find this stuff good. You like it, and drop some topics. Hit me up with some DMs. Maybe we'll do some of your topics out there for those of you that have stuck around this long. Throw out some topics to talk about, and we'll hit that up. I mean, I like the pop up questions about you know counterfeit copies out there of comic books, how to tell, all that good stuff, and then get into the talking subjects about the different comic books that are out there, and go back down memory lane with my very first comic book ever read right here, number 183. Great book. Um, with Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and Colossus all just chilling at a bar, and then in walks Juggernaut, and then the fight ensues. It's a good read. Again, the very first comic book I ever read, ever picked up, and I just had to get it encapsulated. I had to find a copy of it that was already encapsulated, and it is since that was the very first comic book I ever read. I mean, why not, right? And so yeah, and then it was just the love of Uncanny X Men after that. I don't love the new stuff that they've got now, the way they've been jumping ship on it and stuff like that, and they're up to volume 6 or 7 or whatever volume they're at right now. But yeah, unfortunately, some of those covers are relatively expensive as well, and for the new stuff. But it's just like I can't get into it. The 1963 run was the best, and it had so many character arcs and character buildings and first appearances and key issues and so on and so forth. It's just nice, you know, nice to be nice to the nice. And yeah, I mean, go follow Uncanny X-Men, the 1963 series until 2002. I believe 2002 was the last date run of the original 1963 Volume 1 Uncanny X-Men, which started out as just X-Men and then they moved to Uncanny X-Men. But, you know, I find some older issues out there periodically and I end up purchasing them because I need them for my collection. You know, luckily with this 3,000 box of comic books that my friends found, you know, yeah, I got a good run out of it from like number 72 to like 120 or something like that. So yes, I got some very good key issues in there, you know, and now I just got to backfill 1 through 72, but I've got several in there, you know, so I don't need everything from 1 to 72, but, you know, I'm back to just about having that 70 issues that I need to fill out. Oh, welcome back, Mr. Roy Joe Twilight Bradley Jr. You were trying to sparkle in the sun, weren't you? By leaving my show for so long and coming back at the tail end, you know, when you're about to go to sleep. I'm funny. Looking. But anyway, you know what? On that note, I think I need a drink. Yes, sirree, Bob. Brisk. Right here. Brisk is for you. This is their fruit punch flavor. It is one of the best flavors they have because everything else is tea and tea is gross. But here you go. You get you some fruit punch by Brisk. Brisk, you need to be my sponsor. Right now, right here, right now, right way. Do it. Do it. Sponsor me. Sponsor me. That way you can send me some drinks. That's no different than the Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial that is saying the quiet parts out loud, you know, where they're saying, hey, we're cooking people, and you can't do anything about it. I hopefully you've seen that commercial. I think it's here on TikTok. Go look up their 2025 commercial, Super Bowl commercial for Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's kind of disturbing. And if you want to go check out another trippy account on TikTok, go look up Nutter Butter. Go look up their official account for Nutter Butter. It's kind of trippy and out there too. I do not condone these sites on TikTok. I do not own the rights to these sites on TikTok either. I mean, if I did, I guess I'd be making a lot more money, but you know, it is what it is right there. So, but yeah, no, I appreciate each and everybody that stuck around this long and listened to me ramble about everything from comics to why aren't you listening to the show? If you're gonna ask me questions about the show, go watch the damn show. I've got it recorded in 3 different places: my personal Facebook page, my business Facebook page, and YouTube business page. If you're going to ask me questions about the show and the title, go watch the damn show, okay? That's what I have to say about that. Don't just come at me with, oh, well, why are you in a funk? Tell me all the details. All that good stuff. No, go watch the damn show. It might not have even been about me, you know? But yet you're wanting to think it is. Just like today's show title. Why not watch the show? Well, you all have a great day. And again, I appreciate each and everybody being here. Go to my website, subscribe to my other channels, which is Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and you're already here on TikTok, so why not follow, like, and share from here. But I appreciate each and every one of you being here. You are all great. The questions coming in are awesome. I appreciate that. But as I like to say as I leave you, we will catch you on the flip side. Have a good day, everybody.